So looking at all the changes that are taking place globally, with now the polar global politics or economics that we see, with China coming onto the stage, do you still think that ECA is very relevant on the continent?
Well, it's a good question. Yes, we live in a multipolar world. That is true. But ECA remains as relevant as it was in 1958 as now. Because, our member states face a number of economic challenges and political challenges too, particularly the issue of governance. And we have to find a way that we have to continue to provide technical support to our member states. ECA, how does it deliver its work? ECA delivers work through three main areas. What you would call advocacy, where we advocate and help African countries to have a common position or take a position on an issue. Where countries have limited capacity or capacity gaps, ECA tends to fill it up through capacity building, or what we talk about as technical assistance and advisory services. So we come to the country, we work with them on particular issue that they are faced with, and we're trying to address. Right. And then the third thing that we do very well with ECA is what we call the power of convening. Okay. So we are able to convene ministers, we're able to convene intellectuals, we're able to convene meetings where a particular issue, we try to bring those concerns to have a dialogue, and through this dialogue, we come to a common position. So it is still relevant because the challenges Africa faces, at the moment, it faces a triple, or what do we call a trinity challenge. And the trinity challenge are three. One, the issue of sustainable development, where we've had anemic growth and all that, which we need to address. We also face the issue of climate change, and we also face the issue of the impact of the war in Ukraine. And of course, before then, we had the sustainable development in terms of COVID, right? So you have these three shocks. And because of COVID, and this is what is not told, and I'm surprised that people don't use that as in Ghana a lot. Nobody knew what COVID was about when it started. It started like everybody thinking that it's just a cold, a common cold. And then all of a sudden, we begin to experience people dying. So the question is, what should governments do? Governments had no choice but to go and borrow. And that is why most of our African, because they borrowed to save lives. They borrowed to buy the personal protection equipments. They borrowed to buy oxygen. They borrowed to buy health vaccines and all that. So that's why African countries are saddled with this massive debt. Of course, there were governance issues involving the disbursement of the COVID funds, but we can investigate that. But generally, that's why we have debts. And so your question about ECA, its relevance, it is still relevant, because are these countries going to deal with the challenges that they face? They have to understand, they have to marshal the data, and through the data, they have to do the analysis required, and from the analysis, they can provide prescriptions that are needed. It's like being a patient to a doctor. So it is relevant. It was relevant in 1958. It is relevant today.